The train screeched to a halt with a final metallic groan, its iron body breathing steam into the dust-choked air. The station was little more than a weather-beaten platform, flanked by a dry goods store and a half-shuttered saloon. The desert wind rolled through like it owned the place, tugging at skirts and stirring up the grit. A few townsfolk milled about, but no one stepped forward as the passengers disembarked. She stepped off the train with careful grace, one gloved hand clutching a small, battered suitcase, the other holding a modest bouquet of wildflowers, now slightly wilted from the journey. Her dress was simple but well-kept, pale blue with delicate stitching, and her dark boots were freshly polished, though coated quickly in the dry dust of the West. A ribbon bound her hair. Her face, though tired from travel, still held a hopeful brightness. In her case was a worn letter, folded and unfolded so many times the edges were soft. It read, "My dearest, when you arrive, I'll be there. I've built a life for us. Thomas Brant." The name echoed in her thoughts as she scanned the platform. No one approached. No man in a hat with flowers. No rancher with a kind smile and open arms. Just the empty stretch of dirt road and the indifferent stares of strangers. The conductor tipped his hat as he passed her. "Ma'am," he said, already climbing back into the engine. The whistle blew once. Then again. The train rolled on, leaving her behind. She stood there for a long time. By midday, the sun was high and punishing. Sweat trickled down her spine, but she didn't move. Horses came and went. A pair of cowboys laughed loudly outside the saloon, one casting her a look that lingered too long. The others, a mother dragging her child by the hand, the old man sweeping dust from the front of the hardware store, simply averted their eyes. A grizzled man behind the ticket counter leaned forward on his elbows. "You waitin' on someone, miss?" She stepped forward, trying to sound steady. "Yes, sir. Mr. Thomas Brant. He sent for me." The station master blinked, scratched his whiskered chin, then sighed. "Brant, ain't heard that name in weeks." He looked at her closer. "You a mail-order bride?" Her voice dipped. "I am." He shook his head slowly. "Hate to say it, but that fella ain't been seen round these parts in a while. Word is, he ran off drunk into the mountains. Some say he lit out for California. No one really cared enough to check." She stiffened. "But he wrote me, just a few months ago." The man gave a sympathetic shrug. "Seen it before. Fellas think they want a wife, till the bottle wins. Or they die in a bar fight. Or forget they ever wrote. Happens more than you'd think." The bouquet wilted further in her hands. Her grip on the suitcase tightened. "Look," he added, softer now. "A woman like you ought to be careful round here. Not everyone's honest, and not everyone's kind." She nodded numbly and walked back outside. Her shadow stretched long against the ground now. She found a bench near the end of the platform and sat down. Time crawled. The sun began its slow descent behind the jagged hills. A group of boys ran by, kicking up dirt. One doubled back and tried to snatch her suitcase. "Hey!" she cried, pulling it back with surprising strength. The boy spit at her feet and ran off laughing. Her eyes stung, not from tears, not yet, but from dust and heat and the crumbling weight of realization. A quiet voice spoke near her shoulder. "First time in Dry Creek?" She looked up. An older woman stood there, maybe 60, with a kerchief tied around her curls and a basket looped on one arm. She had the look of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised anymore. "I suppose so," the younger woman answered. The older woman sat beside her, not too close. "You've got that look, fresh from the East, still thinking the West is full of good men and clean endings." She said nothing. The woman sighed. "You got a place to go?" A pause. "No. I expected someone." The woman nodded slowly. "They often do." She looked at the suitcase. "Listen, I've got a spare cot. It's not much, but it beats sleep in here. Town ain't kind to strays, especially women alone. Just as she began to gather her things, a voice cut through the cooling evening air. She's with me. They both turned. A tall man stood on the boardwalk in front of the saloon, leaning slightly on one boot. He wore a dust-stained duster and a battered hat that cast a long shadow over his face. His jaw was rough with stubble, and a long, pale scar ran from the corner of his lip down toward his neck. His eyes, sharp, dark, and unreadable, were fixed on the young woman. The older woman narrowed her eyes. "You stay out of this, Elijah." He didn't flinch. "Not your concern, Martha." Martha turned to the younger woman. "You don't have to go with him. He's not the man folks go looking for." "I didn't ask her to come," Elijah said quietly. "Just said she wasn't alone." The bride stood frozen, her suitcase still clutched in white-knuckled fingers. Elijah stepped forward slowly, stopping just a few paces away. His tone softened. "I saw you sitting here since noon. No one came. I figure you were waiting on Brant." She gave a hesitant nod. "Then I hate to say it, but he ain't coming. And you don't deserve to be left here like a stray dog." She stared at him. "Who are you?" He took off his hat, ran a hand through hair that hadn't been trimmed in months, and looked down for a moment, not in shame, but something close to regret. "Used to ride with men who did bad things. Real bad. I got out, and I've been living quiet ever since. Folks around here don't forget. They sure as hell don't forgive." She looked him over, his worn boots, his steady stance, the way his eyes didn't flinch from hers. "I don't need saving," she said quietly. He nodded. "Didn't think you did. But you do need a roof and a place to think. I got both." The sky behind him bled orange and purple. The station lanterns flickered to life. The saloon doors creaked. Somewhere, a coyote howled in the distance. Martha spoke, one last time, voice softer now. "Be careful, girl. Out here, trust can kill you." She didn't respond. Her gaze stayed locked on the stranger. At last, she stepped forward, suitcase in hand. "All right," she said, "but only until I find somewhere better." Elijah nodded. "Fair enough." And together, they walked away from the station, two silhouettes swallowed by the dying light. Dawn stretched thin across the horizon, painting the desert floor in gold and gray. The town of Dry Creek faded, behind them like a bad memory, swallowed by distance and dust. Ahead, the land opened into wild country, rolling foothills, jagged rocks, and empty stretches of earth that seemed untouched by time. She rode stiffly in the saddle, clutching the horn with uncertain hands. The mare beneath her moved steadily, obedient to Elijah's pace. He rode a few strides ahead, silent but alert, his wide-brimmed hat shadowing his eyes. A pack mule followed behind, carrying extra supplies and a bedroll. She didn't know where he was taking her. Not exactly, but when he'd said, "A place safe enough to think," she hadn't argued. They rode in silence for a long while, save for the occasional bird call or the creak of leather. "Do you live out here alone?" she finally asked, her voice catching in the dry wind. He nodded without looking back. "Cabin up in the hills. Been there a while now." "Do you see many people?" "No reason to," he said, "and they don't come looking." It wasn't an answer, but it was the most she'd gotten from him since they left town. By midday, the sun beat down hard. Elijah led them into the shade of a sandstone bluff and handed her a canteen. She drank cautiously, watching him tie off the horses and check the mule's straps. Despite the hard lines on his face and the reputation that clung to his name like old blood, there was something practiced in his movements. He didn't waste effort. He treated the animals with a quiet respect, spoke to them low and soft. She sat on a flat rock, clutching her bag close. The letter from Thomas was still tucked inside, its promises now ash and ink. As they resumed the ride, she let her eyes drift to the sky. Hawks circled overhead. Nothing back east had ever looked so endless or so empty. They made camp that night in a narrow valley. A stream cut through the rocks, and the trees clustered thick enough to block the wind. Elijah built a fire in silence, his hands working from habit. She tried to help, but he gently waved her off. Instead, he set up a small lean-to for her, placing it several paces from his own resting place. She noticed he never turned his back to her, nor did he look too long in her direction. He gave her jerky, beans, and coffee brewed strong enough to scrape the rust off a nail. "Not much of a cook," he muttered. She smiled faintly. "Better than nothing." When the fire settled into glowing embers, she pulled her coat tighter and looked across the flames. He sat hunched over, his face lit in flickers of orange. "You married?" she asked. He paused a long moment. Wasn't fit for it before. The wind rustled the trees. He didn't elaborate. "People in town said you were." She hesitated. "Someone dangerous." His gaze lifted. "They say a lot. Most of it true." Silence again. "I used to ride with bad men. Robbed payrolls. Took what we wanted. Thought it made us free." He looked into the fire. But every ride ended the same. Someone bleeding. Someone betrayed. She shifted, uneasy but curious. "I rode out one night and didn't ride back. That was 10 years ago." "Why?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer. The second day passed with less talking. She asked fewer questions. He offered nothing unless necessary. But as they rode through a field of prairie grass, she noticed how he slowed his horse to match her pace. How he handed her jerky without being asked. How he always scanned the horizon before letting them rest. They came across the tracks of something large in the mud. Wolf prints. She tensed. Elijah studied them, then calmly reached for his rifle. "Don't worry, they're moving east." But she kept looking over her shoulder. That night, as they prepared for sleep, she sat near the fire and turned her engagement ring slowly on her finger. He noticed, but said nothing. Finally, she whispered, "I waited so long for someone like him. I wanted out. I thought love might be it." He poked the fire with a stick. "You can still leave when we get to West Hollow. Stage comes through every few days." She looked up at him. "You want me gone?" "No," he said plainly, "but I won't keep someone who don't want to stay." The next morning, they shared breakfast, charred biscuits and eggs cooked too long. She laughed for the first time when his face twisted at the taste. "I guess you really weren't much of a cook," she teased. His mouth twitched. Not a smile exactly, but close enough. Later, while searching for kindling, she stumbled upon a tin box beneath a pile of stones near his cabin. It was sealed shut with a leather strap. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside were yellowing letters, some in a woman's hand, others drawn by a child, stick figures, animals, a crude drawing of a house. She froze. When she turned, Elijah stood a few feet away. He hadn't made a sound. "They were mine," he said simply. "My wife. My daughter." He walked past her and sat down on a log, elbows on knees. "They took sick while I was out on a job. No one was there to help him. By the time I got back, the house was cold and empty. Buried them myself." He looked at the sky. "I never went back to the gang after that." She closed the box gently and placed it where she found it. "I'm sorry," she said. He nodded. "Me too." On the third day, they neared the edge of the wilderness. The trees thinned. The air smelled of ash. That's when they found the wagon. It had been torn apart, wheels broken, crates scattered, blood on the canvas. The smell of smoke still lingered in the air. She covered her mouth. "What happened?" Elijah walked slowly around it, eyes scanning for signs. His hand rested on his holstered gun. This was no accident. "Who would do this?" He straightened slowly, his jaw tight. "Someone from my past." His voice was low, but the edge in it was unmistakable. The wind picked up again, carrying with it the scent of burned wood and something darker. He turned to her, eyes sharp now, not cruel, but hard with purpose. "We keep moving. Stay close." And just like that, the wilderness that had begun to feel like refuge turned once more into something unknown, dangerous, and unforgiving. The sky was swollen with storm clouds when they rode into West Hollow. A wind whipped through the street, kicking dust along the boardwalks and slapping window shutters open and shut. Somewhere, a loose sign creaked like a gallows rope. Clara sat straight in the saddle, her dress stained from days on the trail, eyes wary. Elijah rode beside her, broad shoulders hunched, coat tugged tight against the wind. The townsfolk saw them before they dismounted. Old men on porches stopped rocking. A woman dragged her child inside. 2 shopkeepers muttered and retreated behind doors. Whispers traveled fast. "Wade's back. Elijah Wade. Thought he was dead. Or in Yuma prison." From the steps of the jailhouse, Sheriff Dunning pushed back his hat, thumb resting on the grip of his revolver. The gray in his beard matched the storm sky above. He didn't smile when they approached. "You've got guts, Wade," he said. "Or a death wish." Elijah dismounted slowly. "Neither. Just passing through." "You're lucky I don't hang you for old time's sake," the sheriff said, voice low with old anger. Clara stepped forward, chin high. "He saved me." The sheriff's eyes flicked to her. A woman clearly from far away, out of place, with a backbone forged by recent trial. "Is that so?" "He found me stranded, protected me, fed me, asked nothing in return." A pause stretched. The sheriff's jaw clenched. Then he stepped aside. "Don't cause trouble. Town's had enough of that." They found shelter above the livery, in a room with crooked walls and a mattress stuffed with straw. Clara washed her face in the basin, staring at the bruises under her eyes, the dust in her hair, the woman she'd become in a matter of days. Behind her, Elijah sat near the window, cleaning his rifle. His movements were slower now. He hadn't slept much since finding the burned wagon. "Tell me the truth," she said without turning. He didn't stop working. "You know most of it, but not all." He laid the rifle aside and leaned forward. "I used to ride with the Wade gang. We robbed rail cars, perils, sometimes worse." He looked down at his hands. "My wife got sick while I was out on a run. Fever hit fast. My daughter too. By the time I got back, they were gone." She listened in silence. "I went mad after. Picked fights. Drank. Almost got myself killed in a bar in Laredo. Sheriff there gave me a choice. Hang or serve. You went to prison." He nodded. 5 years. "And now I try to be better than I was. Some days I fail." She crossed the room slowly. "Why help me?" His eyes met hers, tired, honest. "Because no one helped her. My wife. She needed someone, and I wasn't there." Night fell heavy. Thunder cracked across the hills. In the saloon, shadows moved. Men with hard faces and long coats. One of them carried a revolver in each hand, fingers twitching with memory. They found Elijah at the stable, feeding the horses. "Well, look what the dust blew in," said a voice like broken glass. Elijah turned, hand never straying far from his belt. "Jasper." The man grinned. "Didn't think we'd let you go so easy." Behind him stood 3 others, ragged, hungry-eyed, the remnants of the Wade gang. "You left us bleeding," Jasper hissed. "Rode out with half the gold and none of the guts to finish what we started." "I left with nothing," Elijah said calmly. "That life ended the day my family died." "You know too much. Sheriff won't protect you. You're coming back with us, or we're sending you to hell first." A shot rang out. Clara had seen them coming from the window and fired a warning into the dirt. It startled the horses and sent townsfolk diving for cover. Elijah pulled his revolver as the bandits drew theirs. Gunfire erupted. Elijah rolled behind a trough, returning shots with precision. Clara rushed down, grabbing extra shells, helping a wounded shop boy who caught a stray bullet near the saloon. One of the outlaws tried to flank them through the alley. Elijah caught him with a gut shot, but not before the man clipped his shoulder. Blood soaked through Elijah's sleeve, and he staggered. Clara knelt beside him. "You're hit." "I'm fine," he lied, teeth clenched. Another bandit charged. Clara raised the pistol Elijah had given her 2 nights ago and fired. The man fell, groaning, crawling. Her hands shook afterward, but she didn't drop the weapon. The last of the gang tried to flee, but by then Sheriff Dunning and a half-dozen townsmen had joined the fray. Rifles cracked. The outlaws scattered or surrendered. Jasper was dragged from behind a crate, wounded and cursing. "You'll swing," Dunning said coldly. Morning came slow and quiet. Clara sat by Elijah's bedside in the doctor's office. His shoulder had been stitched and bandaged. He was pale, but breathing steady. When his eyes fluttered open, he found her watching. "Didn't expect to wake up," he murmured. "You almost didn't." A pause. "You shot a man," he said, voice thick. "I had to," she replied. "He would have killed you." Elijah closed his eyes again. "I'm sorry you had to see all that." She reached over, took his hand. Not romantic. Not yet. But it was something. "You're not the man you were," she said. His fingers tightened around hers. "Neither are you." In the weeks that followed, the town slowly changed its tune. Elijah helped rebuild the livery, tended to injured livestock, fixed a broken fence near the schoolhouse. He didn't speak much, but he was there day after day. Clara found work in the local mercantile, organizing shelves and tallying books. The townsfolk started nodding when they saw them. One night, as the last of the storm season passed, they rode together to the edge of the wilderness. The wind was cooler now, calmer. The old homestead, Elijah's, still stood. Roof patchable, fence half fallen. The lean-to where Clara had slept was gone, blown apart by time. But the soil was rich. The stream nearby still ran. "I could help you fix it," she said. "You sure?" "I'm not here because I have to be," she replied. "I'm here because I choose to be." He looked at her, really looked, and then nodded. They worked side by side after that. Fewer words. Shared purpose. She planted herbs in the back. He built a new porch swing. At night, they sat beneath the stars. Not lovers. Not yet. But something steady was growing. The past hadn't vanished. It never would. But it didn't own them anymore.